We'll move on to the next session, and we have Dr. Subhana Arora, Senior Consultant Health and Family Welfare Niti Aayog, joining us online, and she will be speaking on patient safety and governance in the age of digital healthcare. The session would be moderated by co-chairperson Mr. Shantan Chatterjee. Can we have Dr. Arora on the screen?
A very good morning to all of you. My apologies, I'm not there in person. I am in transit. So in case there's a problem with the connectivity, I apologize beforehand.
Thank you, Dr. Arora.
Would you be displaying? Thank you. Would you be displaying my presentation?
Yeah, but you can hear us, right?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So I would request Mr. Shantan Chatterjee, the co-chairperson of our Healthcare National Committee and partner PwC, to please join us on the dais here in Kolkata. So he will be moderating your session. And can we please have Dr. Arora's presentation on the screen, please? Yeah, we can see it on the screen.
Good afternoon, ma'am. So you can hear us, right? So I think...
yes, good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
So we have a, I think, room full of delegates. So I think what the theme, let me just maybe in a minute give a summary of what we have been discussing. So the theme of this year has been in terms of responsible healthcare. So that is what we have been harping on. So as we move towards equitable, accessible healthcare, one of the key aspects is that how do we make healthcare responsible towards the stakeholders. That's been a, I would say, a key thing. So in terms of the patient safety and governance is what your presentation is. So we will be very happy to hear from you, and then we can take it from there. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Would somebody move the slides there as I request? All right. So, there are two images on the screen. The lady on the left was a well-known actress, and the gentleman on the right was a very well-known tabla player. I'm starting with this because, the lady on the left, her mother was operated on the wrong side of the brain for a brain tumor. And this happened outside India. The gentleman on the right, his sister died of complications of cataract surgery, something which we would really not expect. So patient safety is at the heart of healthcare. Next, please. Now, as doctors, I'm a doctor myself, our first goal is to do no harm. I'm so sorry, I'm not able to see the slides. So if you can give me a minute, I'm not able to see the screen clearly. Maybe I'll open it on another laptop here. Just give me a moment, please. Yeah.
Slide number 3.
Yeah, I think this is better, but let me still open this. So prevention of avoidable harm to the patient is absolutely important, and for this we have a clinical governance framework. Next, please. Now the risks can be multifaceted, whether it's clinical, human or others. This is what we had been seeing thus far, Medication errors, you transfuse the wrong blood type, you end up operating on the wrong side of the patient like we saw in the first slide. The patient comes in for an appendicectomy, ends up falling down, has a craniotomy. So falls and pressure sores. Human risks are staff burnout. I myself have worked 72 hours straight. So what happens at the end of those 70 hours, at the end of your shift, is beyond human control, because if we do not have adequate safeguards. Communication breakdown is very, very common that we see inside hospitals. Interestingly, what we saw during Taj attacks was a risk which we could not have really imagined. Hospitals were attacked. Fire while you're operating on the patient, assault cases, patient abuse. We've heard of reports inside ICUs, patients being abused. Now, in the digital era, we are going to be faced with, and perhaps already are being faced with, digital risks, which is, say, cybersecurity, hacking, patient data breach, medical devices. You put a pacemaker into a patient, can it be controlled remotely for ulterior motives? Algorithm biases in AI, etc. There are ways and means to handle it. For example, the clinical risks. You have a protocolized treatment, clinical protocols to guide you. For human risks, you have a culture where you put the patient first. Others, for the digital risks, you have digital governance. For others, you have the various codes in hospitals, like your fire code, etc. Next, please. Now, the impact of this risk is not just clinical. Next, please. I'm sorry, I'm not able to see your screen again. Am I audible, please?
You're audible. We can hear you. We can. I think as the screen
Okay.
comes up, yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, now the screen is back up. So, what happens in the digital age? How can digital help us enhance patient safety? These are just a few examples. I would perhaps just talk about two of them. Now, if there is a patient in transit to a hospital, say the patient has an MI, a myocardial infarction, a heart attack. So, using telemedicine or 5G, you could directly communicate with the ER in the hospital, and the ER is then in a much better space to handle the patient as the patient arrives. Your electronic medical records can help you give you alerts in case of allergies. Very interestingly, I saw a startup which was handling acute care through digital, and they picked up a patient who was about to sink through digital healthcare and rushed the patient to hospital. So the future is immense. Now, next, please. Coming to the Indian context. You could go next to slide number 6. Next, please. We have an unknown burden in India. If you open the WHO website, you will see so many patients are harmed annually, etc., etc. But in the Indian context, the burden seems to be unknown, mainly because of underreporting, the absence of a unified adverse event registry, and also variable digital maturity across facilities. Next, please. Also in India, we have a unique situation, wherein we have high patient volumes and overcrowding, limited healthcare worker. Definitely most unique. How to handle this? Next, please. I'm sorry, but the screen is kind of vanishing and coming back up again. So I don't know which slide you are on. If you could tell me the slide, I could use my
slide number 8.
Printout here to go.
8. Slide number 8.
You're on slide number 8? Okay.
Yeah, unique situation. So that's the heading.
Yeah, so slide number 9 then, please. So the government has taken multifarious initiatives to handle patient safety, and I'm very happy to see that it is on the radar. In fact, the first one, that National Patient Safety Implementation Framework, as per this, nodal officers, patient safety officers have been put up in 400 plus government hospitals, and also 150 plus private facilities. There are various, the accreditations we are all familiar with, NABH, etc. And then, of course, the specific programs like Lakshya, Muskan, Kayakalp. ABDM itself is an effort towards patient safety and governance where the patient is in control of his or her data. The HFR, which is the Health Facility Registry, the HPR, which is the Health Professional Registry, once it's up and about, we will be able to know that this particular doctor is actually a doctor. Because the issue of quackery in India is so intense and ingrained in the system, in some states specifically, that it's HFR, HPR, and then of course the insurance companies also get fraud claims from hospitals which are just on paper. So HFR, HPR would definitely help in that. And there are various other initiatives, the latest of which being, Bodh and Sahi, which we would have seen in the recently concluded patient safety summit, AI summit. Next, please. Slide 10. Now, all of these initiatives, I would say, are just like a drop in the ocean. There's a lot that can be done. There's not adequate research on patient safety. There's not adequate research because there's not adequate funding for the same. There's reluctance both in the government sector and the private sector to share data on patient safety because they feel it would damage their reputation. There's fragmentation of the effort, and then there's a culture of hiding things. There's a culture of blame. So in summary, next slide please. Next, yeah. So this is, you could stop there. So this is how we, inside hospitals, patient safety is, both inside and outside hospitals. Now this is inside hospitals is how it generally works. There is a director of the hospital and there is a MS and a DMS and the paramedical staff, nursing staff, etc. to handle or to provide services to the patient. That's the typical model. Next, please. This is what we need to do is reverse that pyramid so that patient, next please, so that the patient is at the top and this entire paraphernalia is there to support the patient. So this needs an attitudinal shift. And I'll stop the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So I think it was quite comprehensive to see that that what all we were speaking since morning. From a government point of view, what are some of the things in place, regulations that we have. So one question which I will maybe start with and thing is that when we look as as an industry body now, what do you think should be some of the things that we should be working on, where we work along with regulatory and apex bodies like NITI, NABH for that matter, so that we are in sync with the vision and also in sync with the some of the regulations that is coming out. So we heard about DPDP that was mentioned. We just had a session right before that. So what should we be as an industry body and as stakeholders here be cognizant of, and what should be the direction that we need to be working? If there is some point, maybe if you can share, that would be helpful. Hope I'm
yes, thank you. You kind of broke up towards the end. So what I understood was, what can you as an industry body do? Right?
Industry body.
Is that the question?
Industry body, and also we have industry stakeholders, people from caregivers and all. So to be basically in sync with the vision that we have as a government, both at the center and the state. What should we be doing? So that's what.
So can I turn that around slightly and say that it's our country, it's not the government and or the industry, it is together. So if you and only the wearer knows where the shoe pinches, right? So what you see on the ground is what you need to ensure that the country fixes and takes it forward. If you do not agree with the vision, define it yourself, get it to the government. NITI Aayog is open to ideas, inputs from across the country, from across industry bodies. get it to the government, because you need to understand one thing which I guess in my own journey I took a long time to understand, is that it's our country and we build it together. So if there's some input, some thing which you think the government is missing out, please do highlight it. And it's together that we build the country.
Very well said.
So do not limit. My only request is that do not limit yourself to what is right now. Think of what can be.
Okay. So that's one. We can even have, if there's any question that anyone from the audience has, because if anyone would like to pose any question, I can just relay that. If there is something either from the delegates or an audience, will be happy to take that. So one more thing, as if anyone any questions, anything? Yeah, we have one from the audience. Please use the. Yeah, maybe if there's a question you can.
Actually, I'm telling you, for the national patient safety implementation framework, now after the advent of the DPDP Act, to whom it is applies, whether it is hospitals or the healthcare providers, nursing home, you understand my point?
Okay. Would you like to, because you are there in the room, so if we can have a mic.
Thank you for asking that question. I think the answer is very simple on this one. DPDPA as an act, it is not sector specific, so it is not healthcare, it is not telecom or FAS related. It is applicable to all industries, applicable to all size of organizations. I'm using that word consciously, not businesses, organizations. So until and unless I as an individual am going on internet announcing something, if I am sharing my data with any entity, that entity is responsible for taking care of that data. So the consent should be there, which is, I use those keywords, explicit and specific. So it is applicable to everyone. Now, I didn't touch, because I didn't want to go down deep on technicalities of the act, the two keywords there, and Sayantan used it, fiduciary, and there's a word called processor. So we are using these two words, as in the first word slightly differently vis-a-vis GDPR. GDPR talks about controller and processor. Processor connotation is same. If we collect, I am a business entity, I collect and then give it to someone, my third party, for processing in some shape and form, that is a processor. GDPR, that entity is controller, but we are using a word fiduciary, which is what business entity or entity, any organization defining purpose of the data, that's fiduciary. So whether you're a small business, big business, if you're defining purpose of the data, you are fiduciary, you are bound to really comply with all requirements. Now, depending on the size, complexity or interaction points, you may need a lot of technology to do all of that. Or if you are a small business, you may want to do it on whatever local Excel sheet that you want to do or interaction point. So that is different, but then compliance requires that you adhere to it. So when I, on the presentation, I've tried to touch those three types of consents. So one which we routinely experience on when we get to an operation theater, etc., which is a consent that you're being operated and responsibilities there lying with you. Which is second. Third one was a trial. When you're trial, it is slightly different consent because it is still under development kind of a phase. We don't know all outcomes, so we are giving a consent that you are also partly okay if there is a small, hopefully small side step, etc. But then the consent from a digital personal data protection is, and it is all interactions. When we share any personal information, the entity acquiring or defining purpose needs to define what are we acquiring, why are we acquiring, and what would we use this for. So that's the consent from a DPDPA perspective.
So the DPDP, like sir already explained,
that applies to all industry, but patient safety applies to our healthcare industry. So, and that could be related to the infection control, to medication errors, to fall prevention. So many things that patient goes through in during the care, and that's why you have NABH. And I'm not saying that if you're not NABH impaneled, you're not a good quality hospital. But I'm saying these are the bodies, whether it is JCI or NABH, they define the framework for you to have that patient safety guidelines followed in the hospital. So these are two things where one is data protection. So it is safety of your privacy and confidentiality of the information that you're sharing. Other one is to get safe care in a hospital setting. Both are important. Both are needs to be taken care of.
Okay. I think let's see. I think if we have the connectivity, ma'am, can you hear us?
Yes, much better now.
Oh, better now. Okay. So maybe one last question anyone from the audience has for ma'am. We'll just have to take one, maybe. Please. Yeah. Ma'am, you can hear us, right? Yeah.
This question is
Yes.
basically, I would like to make these questions to Mr. Abhijit Mojumdar.
If we can have questions for ma'am right now, she's online.
This is
Please,
not for ma'am.
Please keep it specific.
This is not for ma'am. Thank you. Not for ma'am.
Ma'am, I have
This
a
is
question.
I'm basically from the home care industry, home care service industry. So that's why this is very specific for Mr. Abhijit.
So we will take that, but
Yeah.
slightly right. after.
Ma'am, I have a question that disease, if a person is affected, he is bankrupt, right? To go the private hospital. So Niti Aayog is planning to do something to prevent that bankruptcy. I know that Niti Aayog is doing that Ayushman Bharat, this kind of thing.
Yes, thank you for that question. I totally agree with you. Healthcare costs do drive people towards bankruptcy, but if you see the interventions, the out-of-pocket expenditure has come down from around 64% to around 48%, given all the initiatives that had been taken. One of them, which you rightly said, was the Ayushman Bharat Yojana, where the PMJ, the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, where families covered up to 5 lakh insurance. In addition to that, how do you reduce the cost? So there is something called HTA, Health Technology Assessment, which is also happening simultaneously with ICMR and with the National Health Authority, wherein the treatments, both as regards clinical efficacy and as regards cost effectiveness, those are being evaluated. In fact, unnecessary radiation therapy for breast cancer patients was reduced because it was clinically not needed and it was adding to the cost. That was then done away with using this assessment, and the correct clinical treatment the package was decided. So it's not just, providing insurance, it's also seeing that the correct treatment at the right cost is being delivered. However, there is a long, long way to go. Additionally, many state governments are topping up that. Some state governments are using their own, insurance policies. The other thing that we are also looking at is to see how government hospitals can be run better. So ideally, it should be a situation. This is what the India I dream of, that anybody should be able to walk into a public sector hospital. Doctors should want to work in public sector hospitals. So one is insurance, how you pay for it. Second is how you get the correct treatment at the right cost. And third is how to improve services in the government sector.
Right. In fact, ma'am, just on that cue, there's always a take that the government wants to, and this is just a thinking, maybe it will be good to get a viewpoint from you, that from moving from being a provider to a more of a payer-led, is that a vision that that is?
Yes. So, government wants to get into a facilitatory role. So you facilitate services. You do not create roadblocks. So this is not the British Raj anymore. This is service for our own people. So that's why I don't know how much you could hear that you asked about what we can contribute to the vision. I would say you should define the vision. It's our country. We work together. And I was also in the private sector earlier. And this is my first stint with the government, and I can tell you in my personal capacity that we need people to come in, we need people to support from outside. Because it's our country, we work together. It's not the British Raj anymore. It's not the license permit Raj anymore.
Okay. No, that's
But
very
there's a lot of work that needs to be done. That's also very true. A lot of work. I would again say it's a drop in the ocean what's happening.
correct, and that's very well said. It's we as a country. It's not in terms of what's being. I see there's a lady with just one last question, maybe, ma'am. If you can just keep it short so that we can wind the session up after that. Thank you.
Being a EMR developer, I have one question. I have heard three kind of consents from Mr. Bikramjit Singh. There's one consent for the surgery, one consent for the clinical trials. But while using EMR, anybody using EMR, it can be institutionalized or any private doctor practicing. Don't you think we need to have another consent from the patient that his data can be anonymously, I insist, anonymously used in various trials and research? We need the patient to be signed. What is your take on this?
So I don't know if you heard it. Like, what's the need for
a consent from the patients who is visiting a doctor who is using EMR or EHR, whatever you want to say?
That is the fundamental basis on which it is based, DPDP.
Yeah.
So I think that's baked. Consent management is a fundamental, if I can say that. And I don't know if we are questioning why it is, but I think that's the way it is baked in. Because ultimately, think about it, it's all based on if I give a consent for a specific purpose, for a specific use, that's where the data.
Generally, what we do is what generally happens is a doctor takes online appointment.
Yeah.
He uses the EMR, but hardly patient understands the implication of it.
Yeah, I think we can take this offline. It's more of in terms of what is the nitty-gritty. Things will be changing and also.
Thank you.
I think So I think we're just topping up time now in terms of session. And thank you, ma'am, for I think the words of wisdom, I would say. And which I clearly say. Oh, we have one more question. Sorry, ma'am, you're still there are questions.
Yes.
Yeah, madam, just one question.
Yeah, please.
Ma'am, in case of this Ayushman Bharat or this Swasthya Sati Prakalpa in West Bengal, so we are having gathering a huge pool of data. So for both pharmacoepidemiological or healthcare data or pharmacogenomic or pharmacogenetic data. Now, how this data will be protected? So are we having something similar in lines of EU or something we are developing for our indigenously for India? Thank you.
That's a good question, and thank you for asking that. See, the blueprint of Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission was created in NITI Aayog, and NITI led the effort from reactive data protection to privacy by design. So if you look at Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission, nothing can happen to the data without patient's consent. That is absolutely clear. And then there are certain, very sensitive information which the patient can choose to hide. For example, an unmarried woman undergoing a medical termination of pregnancy. This kind of data is hidden even in physical records in hospitals as per the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. So the entire ADDM architecture is designed around consent, which is very, very important. The second thing I would say is the DPDP Act 2023 and the subsequent rules 2025 are absolutely clear on data protection.
Okay. Thank you then. I think so, as I'm saying, we'll wind up this session, ma'am. Thank you. And look forward to having you maybe over in person and really appreciate the time. I know you are in transit right now. Thank you. And as it definitely gives us food of thought as a chamber that how we co-think, co-create, along with, I would say, the government to basically be part of it. Thank you once again, ma'am.
Absolutely. I'm glad to hear you say that. Thank you so much
Thank you, ma'am.
for having me. All the best. Bye-bye.